Good morning, everyone. It is so good to be with you on this Easter Sunday. And if you're visiting for the first time, we just want you to know that we are so thankful that you have tuned in. Well, this week I was hanging out with my life group from church, and my friend Ashton was talking about just kind of bewildered at how sometimes we have things out of our control, or we're under the control of forces of nature. Like we were talking about different natural disasters and things that are just out of our control. We were talking about tornadoes. Tornadoes are ripping through the South, and I'm from the South. And so you just have to bunker down and pray and hope for the best because it's just out of our control. The pandemic that we have been going through is something that's out of our control. The political turmoil that's happening in the world right now and in our country, it's out of our control. The certain terrorist attacks that we hear about in the news, it's out of our control. The injustices that are happening, it's out of our control, right? We're trying to gain control of these things, but we just can't do it. And there's just so many things in the world right now where we feel so vulnerable and it's out of our control. We think that you would think that we have advanced as a society to the point where we know how to handle these things. We have enough scientific knowledge, we have enough technological advancements to handle these issues. This is actually the premise of a book called Sapiens. There is an Israeli historian and professor. I don't know if you've heard of him. His name is Yuval Noah Harari, and he has a couple of bestsellers out there. It's reviewed by people like Bill Gates or Bill Clinton. And in his book Sapiens, he says that we have the capability to handle these things. And he says we don't need God because we have come so far as a society that basically we are God. And the only reason that people reached out to God or turned to religion in pre-scientific eras is because they didn't have the knowledge that we have today. And I want to show you a little bit of what he writes. He says, at the dawn of the third millennium, humanity wakes up to an amazing realization. And most people rarely think about it, but in the last few decades, we have managed to rein in famine, plague, and war. Now, he wrote this in 2015, and, we are going through a pandemic right now, and we haven't really been able to rein it in. Of course, these problems haven't been completely solved, but they have been transformed from incomprehensible and uncontrollable forces of nature into manageable challenges. And he concludes, we don't need to pray to any god or saint to rescue us from them. We know quite well what needs to be done in order to prevent famine, plague, and war, and we usually succeed in doing it. And so the basis or his premise is that we only turned to God in the past because we weren't capable of solving these problems. We weren't capable of solving poverty or war. We weren't capable of solving famine or plagues, but now we have the capability. And this thinking was really pushed in the Enlightenment movement in the early 19th century. Thinkers began and philosophers began to say, we don't need religion anymore. For centuries, people have needed religion, but we don't need it anymore because we have human reason. We have scientific knowledge. And there's a lot of mainstream new atheists today who push the same idea, like Richard Dawkins or Sam Harris. And I just want to say I'm not here to tear down Harari. There is a communication style called straw man, and that just means that you take somebody's ideology and worldview and you build it up and you tear it down. And that's not my style. Harari is a very intelligent person, and I respect him. I just want you to consider a different possibility. And that's maybe we don't have the capability of solving all of these problems. Maybe we're not in control of them as much as we think we are. Our human reason didn't stop the pandemic. Scientific advancements did not stop the pandemic. And Bill Gates warned us about this 4 years before in a TED Talk. He warned us and he said, guys, we are not ready for a global pandemic. Political legislation is not stopping the injustices in the world, right? On the contrary, in many ways, it's actually fueling it. And so today I just want to submit to you that most of the problems that we are facing in the world today are not outside of human nature, right? Like things that we can just apply the scientific method to that's going to solve all of our problems, but things that are inside human nature, okay, that only the gospel of Jesus Christ and this message of the resurrection can fix, okay? Technological advancements are not going to cure the human problem. Christian author Tim Keller talks about this in his book called Hope in Times of Fear, where one author is reviewing this Enlightenment movement. And he basically says, okay, technological advancements, how are you going to help us with our discontent? How are you going to help us with our depression or our drug abuse? Okay, we live in such an advanced liberal society, and we've come so far in human history with our understanding of the world and our advancements in technology. How is this going to help us with our despair? How is this going to help us with our addiction or our loneliness? In one slide here, I'm going to show you a few ways that technology has influenced our world, and 4 out of the 5 are actually for the worst. Okay, first you have war and terrorism, and you know this is pushed by technology. Okay, we can go all the way back to World War II and how Germany used sophisticated technology for the horrific murder of millions of Jews. Okay, if you've been around for a while, you've probably watched 9/11 happen on live television. I did when I was 14 years old. And terrorist groups are still posting execution videos on the internet that go viral. And technology is inciting more fear. Okay, the pandemic was actually furthered by technology. You know, globalization is a great thing, and it's supposed to make the world a better place. Okay, but because 100,000 airplanes are taking off every single day, this actually spread the pandemic around the world. Okay, and so this is intended to make life better, right? To enjoy vacations and have more fun, but it created a worldwide pandemic. I remember in December watching a video about the coronavirus in China and just thinking, wow, you know, little did I know that just around the corner, Donald Trump declared a national emergency. And then there's the mainstream news media, which is obviously supposed to inform us, but actually it divides us and it confuses us. And there's so much information, so many different narratives, and so many values that are being sold to us, we don't know what to believe anymore. You know, the lines between truth and falsehood is so blurred, and we have more news than we ever have had before, but we are more confused. And then social media, right? Social media was supposed to be a gift to the world. It was supposed to make us more connected than we've ever been, and it has. We are the most connected we've ever been in human history, but we have the most self-conscious, lonely, anxious, and depressed generation, even young generation, of all time. There was actually a study done my wife shared with me not long ago that said the type of anxiety and depression that young people deal with today is enough to put people in the mental facility 50, 60 years ago. You know, the pervasiveness of pornography has actually worsened lust and addiction. It hasn't helped it. I heard of one technologist who said that famine is really the only one thing that technology has made better. Okay, everything else, technology has actually worsened. And oftentimes, things are happening kind of silently with technology, and before we realize the effects it's having on us, it's already been sweeping our lives, and it's had a catastrophic effect. And so here we are as a society, right? We're all trying to move forward toward a better society. We're trying to find a more just and prosperous society. And we're hoping that human reason and scientific advancements will get us there. Maybe better legislation will get us there, right? We're all hoping for a better future. Well, Tim Keller says this. He says, the greatest threat for hope isn't the natural environment, but the evils that spring from the human heart. You know, and this is so key because we're looking everywhere outside for answers. And Jesus actually tells us that all evil, you can go down the list, all evil actually springs from within the human heart. Okay, and so the greatest barrier to overcoming the problems in the world is by facing the sinfulness of the human heart. And so as we dive a little deeper into the sermon today, we're going to see that our problems aren't structural issues outside of human nature, but they are spiritual issues within the human heart. Okay, so we can't reason our way to a better society. We can't just, do science and discover a better society. We can't legislate a more righteous and just society, okay? Because no one thinks the same. Nobody reasons the same. No one interprets data the same. And most of the world doesn't hold to moral absolutes. Well, the title of my message today is The Gospel Reset. And the reason is because the gospel is the only thing that's going to make things right. And this is actually a play on words as well. I don't know if you have heard about the Great Reset. The Great Reset is a movement that's happening right now. Last year, mid-pandemic, around June 2020, the Prince of Wales, Prince Charles, actually called together a meeting and convened a lot of different business leaders and political figures, and they came together around a common theme. And the questions basically asked are, how can we rebuild a better society? Or how can we rebuild a better world? How can we strengthen our global economy? And so the goal was that after the pandemic, how can we have a more sustainable world? And you can look it up on YouTube. It's called The Great Reset. But the gist is that the pandemic has radically changed the world that we live in today. That is not news to you, and that the actions we take today is going to define this generation for the future. And basically, we have to think differently. Okay, we have to think differently about our future. And I don't disagree with that. But here's a quote from the video. It said, "Recovery from the pandemic is an opportunity. We can see rays of hope in the form of a vaccine. But there's no vaccine for the planet. Nature needs a bailout." Okay, so they're talking about a great reset for humanity, for our planet. And I know this has a lot of people kind of freaking out a little bit because they're thinking about the new world order that Revelation talks about. But my hope is that by the end of this message, you'll see that even if that's the case, you don't have much to worry about. So, just to understand, we're contrasting the idea of secular hope today versus biblical hope. Okay, secular hope has one idea of how we achieve a just and free and prosperous society, and the biblical narrative gives us another idea of how we pursue a just, free, and prosperous society. Okay, and by the way, I am not imposing a biblical worldview on you. If you are new to the Christian faith, I just want you to know that I'm just offering a perspective to you that I would love for you to think on. As you know, today is Easter, and so this is also known as Resurrection Sunday, and it's about the historical event when Jesus died, but then he rose again. And the resurrection is actually about resetting the world. It's about renewing and resetting the world. And so when I just hear this talk about the Great Reset, I'm thinking, yes, that is exactly what God is doing in the world. But he's doing it through the lens of the gospel. Okay, so it's actually a gospel reset. All right, the gospel reset. Well, if you have your Bibles, I want to invite you to turn with me to John chapter 20. We are teaching through the book of Matthew this year, 28 chapters, and next week we dive back into Matthew 8. But today we're going to pause and actually teach the resurrection in John's gospel in chapter 20. And we are going to learn about the resurrection. I want you to know what the resurrection means. Okay, like what does this mean for our lives, for eternity? Yes, but also for our lives right here in the present. And so, as always, we are going to take a passage of Scripture and we're going to understand what it means, certainly in the then and there, but how it applies to our life right here in the here and now. By the way, we have a Church 212 app and we have digital fill-in notes. You can follow along and fill in the answers when you see a slide pop up with an underline under it. You can fill in the answers. And today I'm going to be sharing 3 truths about the resurrection. But I'll get into those more at the end of the message. And so go ahead and turn there to John chapter 20. And we're going to kind of skip around a little bit. But we're going to start with verse 1. Okay, we're picking up the story. It's Sunday morning, Easter Sunday. Jesus died on Friday. And on Easter Sunday, Mary Magdalene discovered that the stone at the tomb had rolled away. So here we go, verse 1. Now, on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb early, while it was still dark, and saw that the stone had been taken away from the tomb. Okay, so this was like, this would be like 5 hours ago, like super early in the morning, and she noticed the stone had been rolled away. And this is why we celebrate Easter. It's the resurrection of Jesus. Okay, but not the fact that it happened. Like, okay, God raised somebody from the dead. Big deal. God has done that before. I want you to know what this means, that he raised Jesus from the dead. Okay, and the implications of the resurrection for our life. Philippians 3:10 says, I want to know Christ and experience the mighty power that raised him from the dead. Okay, you see those phrases there, and experience. See, the resurrection gives power for our life. Okay, so, sometimes we can just kind of discard that and say, well, I don't care if it happened or not, let's just do good. But actually, church isn't a do-good club, okay? It's about the Spirit of God that has been breathed into our community by the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Okay, so it's important that we believe in the resurrection, but also that we learn how that resurrection comes to bear on our lives. I think of the analogy of a seal. A seal has an imprint on it, and then you push it into wax, and it creates an impression on the wax. The resurrection is designed to have an impression upon our lives. Okay, it's an experiential reality. I think we don't talk about this idea of the resurrection as much as we should. The cross of Jesus is so important. I mean, it's through the cross of Jesus that we find forgiveness of our sins. Okay, however, it's not the death of Jesus that gives power to our life. It's actually the resurrection. I heard about a theologian who, in his commentary, in one of his theology books, he actually spends 127 pages on the cross, and he only spends 4 pages on the resurrection. Okay, 127 to 4. And this actually does a little bit of a disservice to the believer, okay, because here's a premise for today in your notes. Jesus' death brings forgiveness, but his resurrection gives power. Okay, so without the resurrection, there is no Christianity. Okay, the resurrection is a core doctrine that gives us power in our lives. I love talking about what happened at the cross and the grace of Jesus that is given to us for all of our sins, past, present, and future. Okay, our debt is paid. Our sins are forgiven. This is great news. But we should talk about the power and the renewal that's available now. Okay, and that's our theme for this year. We're talking about the life of God that is available right now in the air that we breathe in his kingdom as we learn to rely on him. Sam Albury said this, I thought it was pretty fascinating, that many Christians, while believing in the resurrection and rehearsing that belief every Easter Sunday, then effectively stick it back in the drawer for the rest of the year because they are at a loss to know what to do with it. We don't want to stick it in the drawer. We don't want it to be one thing we talk about every once in a while. It's actually who we are. It's the core of our faith. And so we want to experience it. We want to rehearse it all year long. And actually, that's why we are in an annual theme this year called As It Is in Heaven. When Jesus prayed, Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. He said, your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And we talked about the present reality of the kingdom of God and the space around us and the air that we breathe that brings life to our soul as we learn how to grow in Christ-likeness, as we grow in our Christian faith. So when Mary notices the open tomb, okay, this is only the beginning, okay? Jesus not only forgave her sins on Friday night, but he's about to offer her new resurrection life. Okay, and Mary's actually about to come face to face with Jesus and have a personal encounter with him. Verse 2. So she ran and went to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved, which is John, and said to them, they have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have laid him. And so she's not even thinking of the resurrection yet. By the way, Jews didn't even believe in the resurrection. They didn't even know in the Old Testament that it spoke of the resurrection. They didn't even understand when Jesus was talking about his own resurrection. In fact, she was really the first skeptic, right? She's like, who took his body out of the tomb? It goes on to say that Peter and John, when they heard this from Mary, they actually took off running, and they ran to the tomb. And it says the other disciple whom Jesus loved, which was John, beat Peter to the tomb. I heard one commentator say he beat Peter to the tomb not because he was younger or faster, just because he was the one whom Jesus loved. He just had this special relationship with Jesus, right? It was love that called him to beat Peter to the tomb. And when they got there, they both looked into the tomb and they could see the linen cloths there and lying next to where Jesus was lying. And it says in verse 8 that when John saw, he believed. Okay, the empty tomb and the grave clothes that were folded was enough for him to believe. In verse 11, it says that Mary stood weeping outside of the tomb. And as she wept, she stooped to look into the tomb. And she saw two angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had lain, one at the head and one at the feet. The angel said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" And this is a key line for today. And Mary replied to them, "Well, because they've taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him." You know, the angel's question is actually a genuine question. They actually want to know, why are you weeping? You know, first of all, I think that angelic beings in heaven, they have to marvel at our sadness, you know, because angels are not fallen creatures. We are fallen creatures. So they literally don't even understand our sadness. They can't wrap their minds around it. But they did understand that Jesus had rose from the dead and what that means. And they're genuinely asking, why are you crying? Why are you weeping? Because they knew there's really no reason to weep. But Mary's still not thinking about the resurrection. She is weeping over the death of Jesus. And it says in verse 14, having said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing, but she did not know that it was Jesus. Now, you may wonder why she didn't recognize Jesus. And I think this is fascinating because we can understand that Jesus' resurrection, it wasn't a resuscitation like it was the same body resuscitated. Jesus was actually risen. Okay, he had a new mode, a new version. He had new properties. He had new power. I was actually watching a video on YouTube the other day because I'm a nerd and I love watching videos about science and the universe. And scientists have actually discovered that a part of human DNA has been broken. Okay, there are some strands that are broken. Letters are missing. Okay, and one day we will be resurrected. And what's great is that we'll have all those properties again. Our DNA will be complete and whole the way that Jesus intended it to be. We will be the true, full version that we're supposed to be. Okay, so this is what's happening with Jesus. Okay, he's the same person, but he's different. It's kind of like, have you ever had a friend that you haven't seen in many years, maybe 10 years, and you see them again and you're kind of not sure if it's them, but then you recognize them? That's basically what's happening here. And Jesus asked the same questions that the angel asked. So Jesus approached Mary and he said the same question, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you seeking?" Now she thought that he was the gardener, and she said to him, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away." And Jesus said to her, you can see this personal, like, "Mary, Mary." And she turned and said to him in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. And I love this because she didn't recognize his body, but she recognized the shepherd's voice. In verse 16 and through 18, it says that Jesus said to her, "Do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and say to them that I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." And so Mary went and she announced it to the other disciples. "I have seen the Lord," and that he had said these things to her. You know, I love that Jesus appeared to a woman first. You know, if someone had fabricated the gospel stories, they wouldn't have started with a woman being the first person that Jesus appeared to when he rose. One main reason is because during this century, women didn't have credibility, especially in court. They had zero credibility in the words that they said. So if this was fabricated, they would have chosen a man or someone with a better reputation. Okay, he appeared to a woman. Then he said to her, to the woman, "Go tell the others that I am risen." And later he also appeared to the 12 disciples, and he appeared to more than 500 witnesses. And he also appears to Paul, who wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. And Paul actually lists a lot of the names of people that Jesus appeared to because he wanted them, even those who were skeptics during this time, to say, go talk to these people and listen to their testimony. So we're teaching on the resurrection again, actually at the end of this year in Matthew 28. And there's a lot more on the subject I would love to go through, but time doesn't allow. But I just want to say this, which is very fascinating. If we erased the New Testament completely, okay, if there was no gospel accounts of Jesus, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John, if they were completely gone and all we had was the secular history books from the first century, in essence, you would actually still hear the gospel. You would know there was a man named Jesus, okay, it's historical fact, who did believe that he was the Son of God. And historically, he was crucified by the hands of Pontius Pilate. And you'll learn that thousands of Jews who did not believe the resurrection was possible and didn't even know that the Old Testament spoke of the resurrection, suddenly, overnight, began to worship someone they believed to be the risen Lord. Okay, that is fascinating. And today, millions or billions of people have had their lives changed by that same Spirit. We sang about that today, right? The same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead lives in me. And we are a Spirit-filled community of believers, and we experience that power. Okay, so the resurrection is actually not based on blind faith, like it's just a blind leap into the dark. Okay, it's not superstitious, wishful thinking. It's actually a historical reality, and it's built on verifiable truth. So the Christian faith is actually a very reasonable faith, right? And you may ask, now, can you absolutely verify that the resurrection happened? Can we really know that it happened? Well, the answer is no. You know, we don't have a time machine. We can't go back and see that it happened. But we can say that of any history event, right? I can't go back to 1492 and prove that Christopher Columbus came to the United States. But based off of history and based off of evidences, we can come to believe that something is true. And you know, that's what reason is. Reason is kind of like a car ride to the sea. You know, I can tell you all about the ocean, but you're not going to know about the ocean until you jump in it. Okay, so there is a level of faith. Even though we have a very reasonable faith, at some point you're going to have to take a leap of faith and you're going to have to jump in and experience it for yourself. I just want to kind of side note just for a couple of minutes before we jump into our 3 points today. And I just want to connect to those who may be skeptical of the resurrection story. I don't blame you for feeling like that. You know, human reason and science tells us humans don't raise from the dead, right? That just doesn't happen. So it's kind of crazy to think about believing in Jesus rising from the dead. Atheist David Hume says that miracles defy the laws of nature. Okay, so they don't happen. Miracles cannot happen. Maybe you've heard of the biologist. He's a very famous biologist and new atheist named Richard Dawkins. And he says that we're biological machines limited to the laws of physics. Okay, and you cannot intervene in the laws of physics because they would not be laws, right? We live in a closed system of laws. Well, my favorite apologist, John Lennox, wrote a book called God and Stephen Hawking, and he responds this way. He says, saying that God cannot intervene in the laws of nature would be like saying that the mechanic who built a jet engine could not intervene and change a fan. And I love that, you know, because the universe, it's actually just as finely tuned as a jet engine. You know, and if the creator of the universe wanted to reach in and change something, he can. My favorite analogy is, you know, you can kind of think of the laws of gravity, right? The law of gravity says if I drop an apple, it's going to hit the ground. You can't change that. However, if I reach in and grab the apple, I've intervened in the laws of nature. He goes on to explain that, and I know that you have felt like this too, you know, when we look up at the heavens and just kind of ponder the vastness of the cosmos, we have only experienced such a tiny fraction of the events that happened in the universe. Okay, so as human beings, no matter how smart we are, right, to say that miracles can't happen or the supernatural doesn't exist is to say that we've learned everything there is to learn about the universe. And as a finite human being, that's pretty arrogant. And John Lennox says this line, which I love. He says, "Which is least probable? Miracles that defy natural laws, or multiple universes popping into existence from nothing?" And I love that. Miracles that defy natural laws, well, that's what the Christians believe. Or multiple universes popping into existence from nothing, right? That's what an atheist scientist will believe. But I can't help but notice that multiple universes popping into existence from nothing, I think you would agree that's a miracle, right? So by speaking against miracles, they're actually promoting miracles at the same time. You know, it just seems simple to me. I'm convinced that it's easier to believe in the virgin birth and the resurrection than the idea of multiple universes popping into existence from nothing. You guys know what the first line of the Bible is? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. I just want to share one example because I love this. Astrophysicist Neil Tyson is someone I love to follow and read. He wrote a book called Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. And I just want to share this because it stirred my faith, and I think it'll stir yours. This is actually the first sentence of his book, okay? The very first sentence. He said, "In the beginning, nearly 14 billion years ago, all the space and all the matter and all the energy of the known universe was contained in a volume less than 1/trillionth the size of the period that ends this sentence." So I just want you to look at this period with me for a moment. Okay, can you imagine 1/trillionth the size of that period? So basically what he's saying is that the entire cosmos, right, hundreds of billions of galaxies, which is what we've only seen with our observable eye, used to be compressed all the way down to 1/trillionth the size of a period. Okay, we have more evidence for the resurrection than this sentence. And again, I'm not tearing down Neil Tyson. He is a very intelligent person. I just want you to be open-minded. He continues and he says, "Though still unknown how it came into existence, this sub-pinpoint cosmos could only expand, and rapidly, in what today we call the Big Bang." And I know you've all heard about the Big Bang, and it's actually funny because the Big Bang was just a joke that a scientist threw off the cuff in a conversation at a conference. And people realized this is actually a really great alternative to a creator, and so it stuck. But I just wanted to share that because when I read from atheists and people who have different perspectives, sometimes we may be afraid to engage in these conversations. But it doesn't hurt my faith. It strengthens my faith because what I realize is that even the smartest biologists, the smartest apologists, they have faith in something because they also want to find the truth about the world. They want to find meaning in the world. They desperately want it just like we do. Right? Aren't you wanting answers? Aren't you wanting solutions to the problems in the world? Yes, you want truth too. And so this is actually why Jesus, the risen Lord, asks Mary a couple of simple questions. "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you seeking?" And as I read this, I love that these two questions actually go hand in hand. Because all of us have had a reason to weep, to mourn, to be discouraged, to be depressed, right? We've all had good reasons to be anxious and to worry about our lives and our future. You know what? We're a fearful people. We fear the opinions of others. We fear financial loss. We fear death. There are so many things in the world that break the human heart. And I think Jesus is actually genuinely asking because he knows the answer. He's asking why? Why are you weeping? Why are you so anxious? Why are you worried? Essentially, he's asking a question, but he's actually giving the answer at the same time. He's saying, "I'm here to give you hope. I'm here to give you hope for a future. I'm here to give you a solution to the problems in your life, a solution to your brokenness. And the solution is resurrection life right now." And the resurrection life is actually tied to a second question. Then he asks, "Whom are you seeking?" You know, it's commonly understood that whatever we place our security in, that's the thing that controls us, or really the thing that enslaves us. So if we put our security in a marriage, or security in financial gain, or successful career, whatever it is, those things have control over us. And the moment we lose them, we fall into despair. Well, this message of the resurrection is that Jesus wants to communicate to you. You don't have to weep. You don't have to fear when he is truly the Lord of your life. Okay, so the resurrection of Jesus, like we talked about, that seal, the impression on our life. There's 3 benefits of resurrection life, and I'm going to share this with you briefly. Number 1 is that the resurrection secures hope for the future. Okay, this isn't earthly speaking, this is heavenly speaking. Okay, the narrative of the Bible is that because of sin and the fall of mankind, our world, not just humanity, our world has been subjected to futility, and it's in bondage to decay. All right, we're not the only ones crying out. The world is literally crying out and groaning for redemption. So the end of the story, it's actually a great reset. Okay? 2 Peter 3:13 says, "But we are looking forward to the new heavens and the new earth that he has promised, a world filled with God's righteousness." Now notice that it says world, a world, okay? When we die, we're not just going to be spiritual beings that are mysteriously floating throughout the cosmos. We're actually going to have resurrected bodies, okay? We're going to have new properties. We're going to have new powers. As Christian author John Hicks says, we're going to be enjoying the limitless creativity of the universe in heaven. Now remember, we're contrasting secular hope versus biblical hope. And the secular hope basically puts so much hope in the world, but it ends in oblivion. And the biblical hope focuses on eternity. Now here, very briefly, is the problem of secular hope. And I just want to touch on our culture just for a moment. So secular hope actually teaches that after every generation, we're going to experience more prosperity than the generation before. Okay, so the idea is that my children are going to have a much better life than I did. And maybe you have heard the term progressive, and that's just the idea of historical progress, that over time, after every succeeding age, we will become a more just and more prosperous society. So listen, through ascending stages, okay, that's important. President Obama, in his speech against terrorism, he used a phrase. He said, "We're on the right side of history." And he used that phrase 15 times. A lot of presidents have used that phrase. We're on the right side of history. And it's the idea that every age is going to get better and better if we work hard enough. But what's interesting is this is a new idea. No ancient culture ever believed this. Okay, there was really only 2 patterns of history that were believed: a cyclical pattern and a descending pattern. The cyclical pattern is that there's good ages followed by bad ages. Okay, and then good ages and then bad ages. And we see this in Scripture. Then the descending pattern of history is basically there was a golden age and now that's gone and we're in the silver age. And it just kind of goes down from there. And we have seen that as well. But listen, only in the last 100 years have people started to say that there's an ascending pattern of history where every new age is better than the one before. And it's the idea of using our knowledge and our understanding of science to promote peace and prosperity. But I'm sure you guys know it's not getting better. The world is not getting a better place. And I just want to say that Christianity actually does not teach that the world becomes more prosperous after every new age. The message of Christianity is that there is an end to all of the ages of human history, and a new age begins. And that new age is far greater than all of the ages that preceded it. Okay, and it's an eternal age. We're talking about billions of ages. So that's the first thing that the resurrection promises us. It secures a hope for the future, a new heaven and a new earth. Number 2, the resurrection brings future hope to the present. And see, this is what we miss out on. about the resurrection life. Not only is there hope for a future, but the joy of that future has been made available right here in the present. And that's what we've been saying from the beginning of the year, and that's our goal for you, is that at least in some way you would experience the life, vitality, and renewal within the kingdom of God. Now, I'm not saying that the Christian life is, super excited and hyped full of emotions, because it's not. Okay, we deal with discouragement, we deal with hard seasons, but we learn how to endure those hardships and have joy. I'll give you a few examples of this future hope in the present. Psalms 103:19 says, "The Lord has made the heavens his throne. From there, he rules over everything." So Jesus is an eternal ruler. Scripture says from everlasting to everlasting. Okay, so if he is there in the future, if he is ruling over the age to come, and he's also ruling over the present age, well, he gives us the life that exists in that future age. He gives it to us now. I'll show you this again. We can taste this future. Hebrews 6:5 says that we have tasted the goodness of the word of God, and what does it say? And the powers of the age to come. Okay, we can taste and experience the powers of the age to come. Like we talked about, like a seal. Okay, the resurrection impressed upon our hearts. And Ephesians 2:6, that we are literally right now seated with him in the heavenly places. Right? We are living in heaven, but on earth. And I know some of you have heard the analogy of the already but not yet. Right? We're already saved, but not quite saved, because the end isn't here yet. And there's this tension of, I have life in the kingdom, but I don't have it fully, right? We have it partially, but we don't have it fully, and we always live in this tension. But there is life for you to be experienced. At our church, we have what's called the Growth Track, and today's actually the first day of Growth Track, and because it's Easter, it's digital only, and if you want to receive session 1, we'll send that to you. But this is what we teach at our church, and if you walk back there outside, you'll see 4 banners out there of the 4 things we do. Those 4 things come from this verse. Okay, here's the 4 things we do because we believe there is life for you in the world right now. So here's our prayer for you. I ask the God of our Master, Jesus Christ, the God of glory, to make you intelligent and discerning in, number 1, that you would know him personally. Number 2, that your eyes would be focused and clear, so that, number 3, you can see exactly what he's calling you to do. And number 4, grasp the immensity of this glorious way of life that he has for his followers. And so these 4 pieces of scripture we convert into 4 steps. We want you to know God, which is salvation, that experience. But not just that, we want you to find freedom in the world from your hurts and your hang-ups. Find genuine freedom. Number 3, discover your purpose, your unique gifts and passions, so you can know what God wants you to do in this world and grasp the immensity of the way of life he has for you. We want you to make a difference in the world. We say the greatest 2 days of your life is the day that you were born and the day that you found out why. We really believe that God has a purpose for your life. Our spiritual enemy, Satan, comes to kill, steal, and destroy. He comes to ruin our lives. But Jesus said, I have come that you may have life and have it more abundantly. Okay, and so number 3, the resurrection defangs and destroys death. Okay, so he defangs and destroys death. Okay, so first, let's talk about how he destroys death. Okay, when you die, your soul actually goes into an intermediate state. It either goes to Hades or it goes to paradise, okay, for a period of time. It's a period of waiting because Jesus tells us that after that waiting, there will be a resurrection. Really, there will be 2 resurrections. Jesus says those who believe him will have a bodily resurrection to life, where in our new bodies in a new world, the Father has prepared a home for us with many rooms. But those who reject the Son or the gospel of Jesus Christ, they will resurrect to eternal judgment. Okay, whether that's eternal conscious torment or complete annihilation of your soul, however you interpret hell, hell is real. I heard a story of a woman who said, when I die, I want you to write one word on my tombstone. And to this day, there's only one word on her tombstone, and it's waiting. Waiting. Okay? The Bible tells us that those who confess Jesus as Lord and believe in our heart that Christ raised him from the dead for our sins, that we will be saved. And here in a minute, we're going to sing a song, and I want you to do that. If you've never come to that place where you have acknowledged your sinfulness before him, confessed him as Lord, and believed that he lived and died and rose again for you, that you would be saved. And if you will do that today, this will be said of you in Isaiah 25, that Jesus will swallow up death for you forever. And in that day, the people will proclaim, "This is our God. We trusted in him, and he saved us." Okay, that will be you if you trust in Jesus. And that day in the new heaven and the new earth, it'll be a time of no more tears, no more death, no more pain. At the end of Revelation, it actually says no unclean thing will ever enter it again. It'll be a wonderful place. D.L. Moody said, "When you hear that I am dead, do not believe it for a second, because I will be alive more than ever before." That is the reality of those who put their trust in Jesus. So Jesus destroys death. He puts an end to death. And then he defangs death. And what that means is that's the temporary death that we feel in our lives, okay? It's more of a feeling of death. Okay, whatever you struggle with in your life, maybe it's anxiety. Maybe you struggle with fear. I was just talking to someone the other day who just really deals with the fear of death, having panic attacks every single day. Maybe it's addiction, whatever it is. You know, this morning we sang that song. We sang, "Oh, death, where is your sting? The resurrected King has rendered you defeated." And we're about to sing that again. And I want you to take that song that says, "Oh, death, where is your sting?" And I want you to put something in it that you struggle with. Okay, if it's anxiety, I want you to say, "Oh, anxiety, where is your sting? The resurrected King has rendered you defeated." If it's depression, I want you to sing, "Oh, depression, where is your sting? My resurrected King has rendered you defeated." Or loneliness, or fear, or whatever it is, Jesus has defanged the power of death in our life. So although you struggle with these things, you can find freedom. And so today, I really just want you to look to Jesus. Okay, I want you to look to Jesus. And if we can circle back to our introduction today, how Harari said that we've come to a place as a society, we know how to handle a pandemic, and clearly we haven't been able to do that. Well, did you know that this same thing was actually said 100 years ago? They were saying the same thing 100 years ago. In fact, H.G. Wells was one of those thinkers, and he said, he was broadcasting it to the whole world. He was saying, "Guys, the solution to the problems today is the scientific method. If we can use the powers of the scientific method and knowledge to promote peace and justice, we can overcome these problems." And you know what happened next? We faced 2 world wars. We had a global flu pandemic, and then we experienced the Great Depression. And in 1939, he actually lost faith in his own ideas. And on his deathbed, he was talking about the atomic bomb, and he was talking about the destruction of homes, and killing and murdering children, and raping, and death camps. And his heart was broken. He basically said, humans have failed. Humankind has failed as the highest species. And you know, during that time, there was a lot of dark literature that was written. And in the words of Albert Camus, he said, "Human life is going down in a never-ending defeat against the struggle against death." You know, we're not moving forward progressively in ascending stages of prosperity. That's not happening. We are actually moving downward into a never-ending defeat in the struggle against death. And if you just turn on the news, I think you would agree with me. Okay, so if this great reset is something that is actually trying to happen, it's never really going to happen. And I know this because it's already happened once before in the flood in Noah's day. God wiped out all of humanity and started over with one righteous family, which were inherently sinful anyway, also because look at where we are today. And so what we really need is a gospel reset, something we experience partially now, but we will enjoy substantially one day. And the greatest barrier that we have in enjoying the prosperity that we long for is actually the sin in our own hearts. All right, we can keep looking outside for answers, but we cannot reject the doctrine of original sin. All people have fallen short of the glory of God. Sinfulness has corrupted the human heart. As Jesus said, the evils in the world come from within. And maybe you've actually heard of the great exchange. And that is that at the cross of Jesus, there was a great exchange. And that means that our sinfulness, the sinfulness of the whole world, was transferred to Jesus on the cross as he took the wrath of God upon himself. And then in return, the righteousness of God was transferred to us. And those who believe in Jesus' substitutionary work, we are credited as being just as righteous as Jesus. We are declared forgiven and righteous. Though we sin, we're declared righteous. And not only that, we're given new resurrection life to learn how to live life in the kingdom of God. So I want you to know those three benefits of the resurrection. You can have a certain hope of the future and live with that hope. You can also experience the joy of that hope now, right here in the land of the living. And you can begin a new journey following Jesus and enjoying that abundant life. Okay, Jesus defanged and he destroyed death. And so let's sing this song together and let's worship our resurrected King.